Róisín Murphy, essential pop artist and also an unsung hero of pop music as well. She's been around since like the early 2000s, whether it's her fantastic work with Moloko or her solo material that came later in the 2000s and has been going on for even longer than that. We had an album last year, Róisín Machine, great little rhyme for a title, and now we have a remix album, Crooked Machine. Don't know about you guys, but it feels a little bit more common these days to see an album and then like months down the line you get a completely new imagination of that album and you get these tracks reimagined by someone else in a remix format. It just does seem to be the way of the world in music at the moment. It used to be generally just singles, but I've noticed it far more recently in the album format. I mean, it was only, I think, about a month ago we got the Perfume Genius album completely, fully remixed. You had that 100 Gex album last year. It's become quite a common thing. It's even becoming nearly as common as bloody deluxe editions. We're getting like an album a week or maybe a few weeks down the line, a few months down the line, we're getting a deluxe edition. It only just happened recently where Jessie Ware announced a deluxe edition for her album, and I only did a video on the new track the other day, so this is becoming quite an increasingly common thing, and remix albums are certainly becoming nearly as more frequent as we've ever seen, really. And Róisín Murphy has seen fit to do a remix version of her own album here. Well, DJ Parrot is doing the remixes, but obviously she was involved in this as well. In a little mini interview, she stated that she actually prefers this version to the album that we got, which is very bizarre to see an artist prefer a remixed version of their own album. You would think that they'd be, they'd be happy enough with their own work to see that their own album is the one that they like more, and the remix version is just, extra bonus tracks really for the fans or something like that, or just a reimagined version of that album just for different kinds of listening experiences, really, because obviously this album gives you something different to the original version, so you're just getting two separate versions of similar music. It's surprising for an artist to prefer that remix version, particularly with this album here, because I just don't see it being better than Róisín Machine. I think it's weaker overall, honestly. I still think Róisín Machine is pretty good with all its flaws. Mostly for me, the main flaws were that some of the tracks just took a little bit too long to get going. I don't think you needed the huge, extended intros, extended outros of, a pretty similar repetitive groove playing, when you could just get straight to the point. When you listen to her older stuff from 2005, 2007, all of those tracks were so immediate and straight to the point, and they were banging and they were exciting, they were danceable. They had all the danceable qualities that Róisín Machine had, but they just got straight to the point a bit quicker. And we're seeing that idea of just extending things, repeating things, looping things over and over again, just hammered in with this remix version, and it just leaves very mixed results. The opening track has this tinny beat. It really doesn't sound very professionally put together at all. It sounds a bit irritating, honestly. It's not the best percussion you'd want for a dance track. It goes on for far too long as well. Some of these tracks just really feel like they should have been about 3 minutes, and most of the time they're doubling that length. You could have really cut these down to just the best aspects of the tracks instead of just repeating the same instrumental for ages. And it tries to conjure up this atmosphere, and the atmosphere is flat. It's flat. It's just what the flat earth movement people believe that the earth is. It's a flat atmosphere. And then there's some tracks like Capable Rhythm, which just doesn't even come close to what the original track was doing or sounded like. It's just not half as groovy and as infectious as the original version. So this reimagination just sucks away the life out of what we got before, which just leaves me wondering what the point was here for this track. The steady grooves continue with assimilation. This is a track where some really sensual vocals come through here. She is really sounding very ooh. That aspect of the track I kind of enjoy. I like the way she's just letting loose with the vocals here, or I think you know, DJ Parrot has manipulated them in some kind of way. But again, while it's solid for what it is, it's just too steady paced. I want things to just amp up a little bit more. Crooked Madame, just very low impact, very tame stuff. I want my deep house and house music to have more oomph and passion behind it, and tracks like this just don't really have that. It's just very backgroundy. There's not really many aspects of the track, well, most of these tracks actually, that stand out. You know, the vocals are just fine, the instrumental is usually just kind of meh, to be honest, and it's just not what Róisín is here to do. She ain't about this life. This album isn't speaking to the best qualities of what we've heard from her before. It gets pretty bad when you get to Name Changer though. I really can't stand this really warped and really like wobbly beat that just doesn't sound great at all. It just irritates me once again. I think you could make something like this sound really cool, but I just don't think this track does that. It feels like it goes on forever, and I cannot express how shocked I was when I picked up my phone to check the runtime and it was only like a 5-minute track. If you told me this was 9 minutes, I definitely would have believed you. I couldn't believe it. This track really drags on and on and on. It's such a ball ache. Bizarrely, we get two of the best tracks, easily the only ones I think I'd ever go back to, right at the end. We Are the Law and Hardcore Jealousy, the final two tracks, which actually, by the way, weren't necessarily the best ones in my opinion from the original album, particularly Hardcore Jealousy. I think the original version was one of the weakest tracks. But it's kind of funny how this ended up being probably my favourite on the whole thing. It's so bass heavy, and this is what the album's missing. So much of it is low impact and very tame, and yet this track just comes through with a meaty bass, and it's just so good. And the drum and bass approach to this one is so welcomed. It's just bizarre that we get this 50 minutes into the album, because I think this could have been incorporated earlier on in the other tracks that were missing qualities that I tend to look for in this kind of style of house and electronic music. We Are the Law is fully realized as well. It's almost like all of the elements that this track brings in is just not really in the previous tracks. It's like they're the demo versions and this is like the final version. It's a huge big house beat, really great. It's got this spacey atmosphere to it as well. Reminds me of some great Todd Terje, who you should check out because his album It's Album Time is fantastic. Also reminds me of some Justice as well, their 2000 stuff. Again, really good stuff, and anything that reminds you of those kinds of artists is a win-win for me. So yeah, if more tracks were like these two, I think this would have been a really good remix version of the album, but it just ends up paling in comparison to what we got originally. And like I say, I wasn't even that big of a fan of the first one, but it was at least enjoyable. But most of this really washes over me, and I'm just left wondering what exactly was the end goal for these tracks, because they just don't leave me feeling much at all. So it's a 5 out of 10 from me. I'm happy with the final two tracks, but I'm just let down by the fact that none of the other tracks hit the quality of those final two. But, you know, I still think Róisín is fantastic, and I still think she's an unsung hero of pop music. Really essential she is to pop music and popular music overall. Like, fantastic artist. This just isn't displaying the best aspects of what she can do, but I still think you should just go back to Róisín Machine if you haven't heard that already, because again, you'll find some really great disco bangers on that one. So thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you're not too mad at my opinion. Tell me what I should review next. Hopefully you have a good day. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. That would be great, and goodbye.